As we're going through the department, we had a hire, 2005, so I'll go back even further. In 2005, we had our new trails policy established, and that's telling the department that we need to start looking at multi-use trails to try and accommodate other users. Now, it's a priority, but it's not required. So that means anytime we have a new trail suggested, we're going to look at it first for multi-use. If it cannot accommodate multi-use, then we look at it for the intended single use that it was, that it could accommodate, depending on all sorts of factors: environment, cultural, resource, safety, all sorts of factors. So after that, of course, we did establish this policy. We had a lot of requests from a user group that feels that they are underserved. And we had to come up with a way to answer those requests. We couldn't just get them in and let each district handle them haphazardly and however that person felt at the time, making it very biased. The other problem that we had is you've got two user groups who are adamantly against each other. So when you had one group request use, there was another group right there to unrequest that group, to fight against it. And so we found that we couldn't bring those folks into a room and actually talk about this trail in a reasonable manner, because everybody is very emotional, very invested in their use in their trails and their environment, which we definitely appreciate. So we recognized there had to be a process. So we started in with the Programmatic Environmental Impact report for the CIU, which, just to clarify with everybody, basically the CIU, the change use process, went through CEQA. We had to take this process, we had to outline it, we had to detail it, we had to discuss any possible modifications statewide, what makes it fall out, what kind of modifications would make it fall out of a standard CEQA process and go into an environmental review process. It was quite an effort. It took us 4 years.
Where do you think that PEIR was developed?
What?
Who do you think asked for that PEIR and put the challenge out there, and where do you think the process was developed? Here. Marin. Over on Bill's Trail.
Bill's Trail, yeah.
Statewide programmatic EIR, conservationists in Marin asking that question, process developed in Marin.
You've got quite a strong, consistent user group here on all sides.
Could you clarify that? I'm not understanding what you're saying.
Basically, the reason why we started this process because there were a lot of requests. I know. I'll stop with the acronyms. They're just really long words. The Programmatic Environmental Impact Report was started because of all the activity in Marin.
Because of all the what?
Activity in Marin, the requests for bike trails in Marin. So that is why it was started, was because this area, people were very interested in making sure we had a formal process to address the issue, and that's where it started. So your user groups. Okay, so before we get too far, let me go through, because we're gonna. I know, Jordan, we got lots of questions for us. We're gonna go through, and let me go through the process. I'll stop using acronyms, and then we can start having some questions. So it took us 4 years to finish that process, and in 2012 we were able to get through the environmental review process and establish the change in use process for California state parks. So here we are. Formal process, so I'll give you. Okay, so you guys have all seen this chart.
No. Yes.
No. This is in your information packet. This is a nice simplistic matrix of this process. What I'm going to put out on your information table, this is what I give the public. This gives a nice written, broken out, step-by-step of each of those, each of the process steps. Tasks. Okay, so it just gives it's the exact same chart, just gives you better instructions, better understanding of what those we need to ask. So we got the request, like Victor said. It can come internally or externally. That means a staff member can put in this request, or a member of the public. It can come from a group. It can come from one person. It's treated the same. But I'll get to you.
Is that one good question?
Okay.
Was it Marin Bicycle Coalition that made the request for the process?
You know what? I do not know who made the request for the process. For integration?
MCBC made the request. There are people who said that they've given us a bunch of money. There was no donation that came with that request.
And it can't. That is part of the process. We cannot ask them to pay for us to do this evaluation. This has to be done with district money, of course, because the point of this was to keep it very unbiased. So we got the request. You said one. Let me get through my program.
But I want to pass the point that you said who requested the PEIR?
It was the community. There was a lot of
It
folks.
came out of Marin County?
Yeah, out of the community talks.
Wasn't Marin Bicycle Club?
No, it was a lot. It was equestrians, it was hikers, it was Sierra Club, it was bicycle pole, it was a lot of folks.
Marine Conservation League was the biggest proponent.
Yes. Because they're just as interested as having changing use on their trails, right? So
Yeah,
let me finish the process real quick.
Jordan, I'll also say that we're going to be available once we do it.
I can sit out there and talk with you for a while,
So
yeah.
we'll get to your special questions.
Yeah. Okay. So we've got the request. Now they have to pull together a multifaceted team and do a very detailed trail log and walk through their trails and make sure that they've got a good understanding of the environment they're going to be addressing. Now, I think what's important for what Victor had told you about the multifaceted team, I think what's important to remember is when they sit around the table with that evaluation form, you're getting a perspective from different professional aspects, right? So you're looking, so somebody who's in an environmental side of it versus a cultural versus a maintenance chief versus a public safety view are going to have different concerns when they look at that trail. And that is why they're required to have a multifaceted team. One person does not make this decision. They have to sit there and hack it out with each other and come to a decision that they all can agree on. Okay, so they came to that recommendation. Then they take that recommendation to the public. They take it to their constituents and their stakeholders, and they talk to them about it and come up with the final recommendation. That is where you guys are at. You come up with a final recommendation. This process is not over. It's far from over. Okay, now we're just looking to move forward. We've got to have a construction team come out here and do a detailed design layout, do the log that Victor had discussed, and decide where this could actually be accommodated with the modifications that were identified in the recommendation. So a lot of things.
Or if it could be accommodated.
Or if it could be accommodated. There's still a lot of steps. And then after they come up with that design plan, then they got to go through and cost it out. They got to go through the environmental process. They've got to go through, everything they have to do with any project level review. So nothing skipped. And I think the big thing is we want to make sure everybody understands that there's three opportunities for the public to be involved with this process. The first opportunity was when we did the initial programmatic environmental impact report, and that went through the CEQA process. We had a lot of public involvement. The second one, just a second. The second is when after they've made their recommendation, come up with a recommendation, they take it to the stakeholders. That's the second opportunity. The third opportunity is when they come out with their design and they have to go through their environmental review, you have another opportunity during that environmental review process. So the public is not left out in this process in any way. It's highly involved. I'm going to grab this lady first, and then I'll grab you.
Well, I was just wondering,